So I want to tell you something about how I build things. I'm not a marketer. I've never looked at a trend, spotted a gap in the market, and built a product to fill it. Every tool I've ever built started with the same thing, a problem I couldn't solve, and a moment where something I needed didn't exist, and the decision to build it myself. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why I built the two products that sit at the center of everything that I do, and why understanding that might matter more than knowing what the products actually are. So you already know that I left strength and conditioning for a few years. What you might not know is what that period actually felt like from the inside. My wife and I started a pest control business. I was the technician and she ran the office. And I was on the road alone for 12 to 14 hours a day, covering 175 miles of stop. Now, for 17 years, I'd worked in elite sport facilities where training was just part of the day, right? So if I wanted to train before work, I was already there. If I wanted to train at lunch, I just walked downstairs. If practice ended early, I got a session in before I went home. So I never had to think about it. It was frictionless. That frictionless access had built my consistency for nearly 2 decades. And I never really noticed that it was a superpower until it was gone. So this one morning, my wife was handing me the schedule for the day and she looked at me and said, "You're losing weight." And I went straight to the scale and sure enough, 7 pounds down. Now, I'm not a big guy. So when I start losing weight, that's my signal. That's when I know I need to get back to lift. So I thought, I'll just get back to the gym. There's one in town and it's simple. Then I looked at the schedule for the week, 12 to 15 stops a day, 175 miles of driving every single day. There was no lunch break, there was no stopping, there was no, I'll just squeeze it in. I literally didn't have time to go to the gym. And standing there in my kitchen looking at that schedule, I felt something that I never felt before in my adult life. I felt exactly what my clients feel. And I don't mean the clients that I was working with for 20 years. So not the Navy SEALs or NFL players or the rugby players, the other ones, the general population clients that had always told me they couldn't find the time, who I had, with the best of intentions, told to prioritize their health and find a way. I finally understood what they were up against, and I understood something else. The messaging around fitness for everyday people is wrong. We tell people that consistency is a character trait, that if you're serious about your health, you'll find a way, that discipline is the answer. But I had discipline and I had knowledge. I had 20 years of expertise in human performance and I still couldn't get to the gym because it wasn't a discipline problem. It was a logistics problem. And that realization is where both products were born. I'm not a natural runner. I understand the value of aerobic conditioning deeply, intellectually, as well as anyone in the industry. But running for the sake of running has never been something that comes naturally to me. What I needed, if I was going to build conditioning into my life without a facility, wasn't just a program. I needed to be coached through it. Because here's what happens when things get hard on a run and you have no visibility on where you are in the process. You start asking yourself why. 2 minutes in, maybe 3, the effort climbs, the discomfort arrives, and without any external presence, without anything telling you where you are, how you're doing, how much is left, your mind starts to wander into the one question that can end the session before it should. Why am I doing this? I needed something that would keep me inside the run, present, coached, and guided. I needed to know where my pace was. I needed to hear it. I needed a cue at the halfway point of the interval. I needed to know I was progressing and not just feeling like I was running for the sake of running and hoping for the best. And I needed it to be built for me. So I didn't want a generic program, not a plan designed for an average person at an average fitness level. I needed it built from my MAS score, calibrated to exactly where I am, progressing at a rate that reflects my actual capacity. So I built it. Condition Pro. It's mass-based, it's audio coached, it's fully personalized from the moment you take the test. I use it right now. Last week I was in Taiwan and I used it on the treadmill and running around the city. It doesn't matter where I am. The program came with me and it was still built for me. I built Condition Pro because I needed it, because I finally understood what it felt like to be a general population client who wants to be consistent and keeps running into a wall that has nothing to do with motivation. The same instinct drove Program Pro, but the problem was different. When I was at Munster Rugby, I was responsible for over 60 athletes, so individual programs, individual needs, individual adjustments based on competition schedules, travel, recovery, training age. But the intellectual work wasn't hard. I knew what each person needed and I knew how to make the adjustments. That part, the thinking, came naturally after 2 decades in the industry. What was brutal was the inputting. Hours sitting at a desk, not designing programs, just writing them down, capturing what I'd already figured out in my head into a template, again and again for 60 people every cycle. And then the same thing happened at the Air Force. New groups of fighter pilot candidates every 8 weeks, different people, same process. I'd work out what they needed and then spend hours putting it all on paper. I kept thinking, the thinking isn't the problem. The system for capturing and applying the thinking is the problem. And what I was seeing in my education foundation work made it even clearer. Coaches weren't struggling because they lacked knowledge. They were struggling because they had no system for turning what they knew into decisions that they could repeat. Every program felt like the first program, and every client meant starting from scratch. Program Pro is my answer to both problems. It's not an AI program generator. It doesn't replace your thinking. It's a decision-making system built to think the way I think, to capture the coaching logic behind every program decision and make it repeatable, scalable, and legible. So the time you spend is on coaching and not on administration. I built Program Pro because I needed it, because I was the coach sitting at a desk at 11 p.m. inputting what I'd already figured out at 9 a.m. Everything I build starts in the same place. A problem I lived, a gap I felt personally, and a moment where I looked around and the tool I needed didn't exist. I'm not building for a market, I'm building for myself, and trusting that enough people out there have felt the same things that I felt. The general population client who can't get to the gym and doesn't need more discipline. They need less friction and better guidance. The coach who knows enough but can't turn it into something repeatable. They don't need another course. They need a system. That's what both products are, and that's why both products exist. And if you've ever felt either of those things, I built them for you too.